You're a bum. You dress like a bum.
Is there a spider bite in there? Oh, look, we got a half a...
Half a beer? Oh, shit, there's half a beer.
Yeah, damn right.
Hell yeah.
If I wanted to quit drinking, I believe I could do it. But I don't want to quit drinking. I like drinking. That's all I got.
Room check, staff entering. Society wants everyone to be sober. They just think total abstinence is the answer. Why don't they just get sober? Why don't you just make them go to treatment? And that doesn't work for everybody.
As a human being, I make mistakes. I'm fallible. But, you know, that doesn't make me a bad person.
I know in my heart I'm still gonna drink right now.
Anybody that looked over me or whatnot, I'm somehow betrayed somehow, some way.
I used to pick flowers for my sister. Hey. Grab some yellow. Smell that, yeah, smell that. Yeah, add some yellow. Don't that smell nice? Yeah. Do you know how important life is? Death can come anytime, anywhere.
Let's get that early morning light here. Well, it's not, I guess it's not early. It's early for me, but.
You're where?
Oh, I'm in Minneapolis.
You are, okay, which is where, of course, you shot the film.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Sure. Glad to have seen it, Wet House.
Yeah, thanks for watching it as well.
Is it your plan to thank every individual for watching it? Well, anyone who invites.
Pretty much, yeah. That's how these things are, you know. I mean, if someone takes an hour and a half or whatever to watch.
It's true, yeah, and you do have to be the ambassador for your film, as it lives its various life cycles out there.
Yeah,
I got my second vaccine shot yesterday.
Oh, congrats!
Thanks. So I'm feeling all right, but I'm a little, like, my head's a little clouded, you know.
Okay. I'll try.
I don't have the achiness. Even my arm isn't real. It's a little sore, but it's not really, you know, like distractingly so.
Yeah.
And I don't have any of the accompanying achiness that I was warned about. But I took a nap a little while ago because I was just like, you know, struggling.
Yeah, after I had my second one, the only symptom I really had was a little bit of fatigue, but
yeah,
you know.
All right, so kind of experienced the same thing. That's
some people really got laid out.
I heard. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. So why don't we talk about what is currently at the Atlanta Film Festival?
Yeah, it's at the Atlanta Film Festival, which I'm really excited about.
It's a great festival.
Yeah, they really run it very well. And my first movie played down there too, Legend of Sweet Pea.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy that, you know, we got into that festival. It's a really well-run festival. Too bad we couldn't go down there in person, but
this whole year or so has been one big giant too bad, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but
everyone felt it in a different way.
Talk about the origin story here. A wet house is a term for a facility that I guess it's called a harm reduction facility.
Yeah.
So what they're doing and interrupt and correct if as needed, but it's what it sounds like is it's a facility that's taking a different approach. Whereas, you know, we're more familiar, certainly speaking for myself, I'm familiar with places where people dry out, where they go for rehab, where the idea is to stop drinking. That's the goal, and to kind of get re-socialized, hopefully. Whereas the wet house takes a very different approach, which is more like dealing with the reality that this comes down to a choice and they need help either way.
Yeah, I think there's, the traditional, I guess, cultural way that people have looked at alcoholism is that the only way to really treat it is, is abstinence. And I think that's true for the majority of the population. But there has been a segment of the population of alcoholics who are, treatment resistant, really. And
wow,
part of the population has, been here for as long as we've been, for generations. I mean, you look, the people in this film, they kind of look like alcoholics on Skid Row from, the 1940s and 50s. It's almost like an archetype or whatever.
Bowery guys, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is a certain, percentage of chronic alcoholics that just won't respond to that sort of traditional treatment, and they don't want to. And so the question then becomes, do you not offer anything? And the community, so they just live on the streets and die on the streets. And there's a lot of public dollars and tax dollars that go into their hospital visits, their detoxes, the shelters, going to jail, you name it, right? Getting hit by cars. Or do you accept that some people aren't going to stop drinking and fund places like, the Glenwood? And there's another place called the St. Anthony where we filmed at. And there's, combined, there's probably about 150 guys who live there. And, it saves the taxpayers money because they're not going to detox, they're not going to jail, they're not going to the hospital all the time, and they actually drink less. And it gives them some dignity, as a place to stay, and their own bed in their own room. And so it's sort of a win-win, but you have to get over the, I guess, this sort of cultural idea that,
it's a broken thing needing to be fixed.
Needing to be fixed, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it might be a broken thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Maybe it's learning how to deal with a broken thing more than, it's more of a palliative almost approach to it, as opposed to the, alternative, which, so do they think that this approach is successful in terms of also reducing, or maybe even some people do quit, that there might even be, since it's much less, or like defaulted in a judgmental default built into it. It's like you're bad because you drank. There's something really inherently wrong with you. But here, like you just said, you're giving people their dignity. Not that they can't be done also in other types of rehabilitation facilities, but here it seems very mindful of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, to your first point, it has some parallels to, hospice care for
right.
for people who have end stage, cancer, or uncurable cancer. It's very similar because these guys are but some of them actually do get sober. And one of the people and participants in our film is, he works on a farm now, and he did get sober. It's a pretty astonishing feat when someone does in that environment, but it does happen, and it probably happens more there than it would if they were on the streets. As one person in the film said, if you're on the streets, you might as well be drunk, right? And then to your second point, I mean, I think if it's recognized as a disease, there's a little bit less shame involved.
Right.
And I think the residents there, there's probably a reduction in the amount of shame that they feel if they're not told that there's something wrong with them and they have to quit. And if they're sort of accepted as they are, it's sort of, an evolution of its understanding as a disease, and the people probably experience less shame about it. So I think that's a good thing as well. And furthermore, people who live there, they end up drinking less because, they can just go up to their room and watch TV and,
right.
They're a little bit more comfortable, so they drink less, so it's good that way as well.
Is it always the case there's trauma related to it? Is that always the case? Or is it because they're predisposed, it's like no pun intended, but a kind of a cocktail where it's like trauma and then they're predisposed to alcohol? Maybe it's in the family, or I'm just wondering if you found.
Yeah,
through your research, if you found like, you know, these are all guys that have suffered tremendous amount of trauma in their past.
Yeah, I don't think trauma was a consistent theme, because the the people that are there, they come from all different walks of life. You know, some from upper middle class, families, who grew up with all the benefits of that, as well as other people, from all socioeconomic backgrounds. I do think if there is a common thread, it would be, sort of a hereditary disposition towards it, number one. And then number two, starting drinking very early. You know? I mean, the ones who are there, they all typically, when they talk about it, kind of had their first, some of them had their first alcohol experience, when they were, 10 or 11 years old, or, 9 years old, or something like that, So that was a common theme for sure. Early starting and kind of a hereditary history, if you will.
Right. Did you struggle, or, I mean, you weren't alone in this decision making, but how much to show? I mean, there's one guy who's, really, I mean, this is a guy who you can really see an example of somebody who has absolutely no self-control over this. He just can't, he's very just, I mean, he's obviously an intelligent guy, and he knows that he's going to drink in front of family. He's going to drink. It's not a matter of, it's not like an internal struggle for this guy. He's going to do it. He's planning on drinking himself to death.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that.
I guess the question attached to that was, did you struggle with how much to show? How deeply,
yeah, we did a little
painful
bit
to watch. It's dark.
Yeah, there were some darker moments that we decided not to put in there that were a little bit, almost tropey. Like we were out on a lake with that person that you're talking to, and we were filming in slow motion with him walking, and then he fell, with this vodka bottle on the lake, and it was a pretty dramatic thing. But it's like, are we going to do that for the amazing visual of it, or are we going to continue kind of with how we're doing this film, which is real observational? And then kind of to your other point, I mean, when you're seeing someone drinking that much, you wonder, well, can I help this person? Or, that sort of thing. But it's really, we learned a lot about how to kind of encounter this, the disease at this stage, which is really, you can't do anything, you can't really do anything to change these people, right? You just kind of have to accept them as they are, kind of as the wet houses do, and support them in any way you can. And that's all you can do, I mean, you can't get overly, you have to have your own boundaries. You can't get really emotionally invested in their health when they're going to drink, because you said, no matter what. So,
yeah. And as far as the verite approach, which you're describing in a sense right now, I was wondering how you, like, there is a bond and a brotherhood among, some of these guys that find each other, under wherever they're sort of on the margins, right, of society because of the nature of what's going on with their lives. And yet they sort of hang out, I mean, you show that there's a number of guys who are hanging out. And like, how was that shooting those scenes and to remain as sort of invisible as possible? Was that a struggle?
Yeah, the one thing that I found when we filmed these guys is that they would lose awareness of the camera really quickly.
Well, everyone does, but maybe more so in this case.
Yeah. I mean, filming verite, a lot of times, people are aware, like you say, they're aware, they lose awareness eventually, but you can kind of sense their awareness of being filmed and kind of like changing their behavior. And these guys would lose it pretty quick. And I think not because they weren't necessarily, not, intellectually aware enough. They just were kind of at a point in their lives where they didn't care.
Right.
You can film me doing this or that, and this is how we're under the bridge, and this is what we talk about. There, in a way, one of the things that I think kind of draws them to that lifestyle is full letting go. They let go of all responsibility.
Wow.
Everything else, and you're filming me, and this is exactly what I'm like,
right.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. Ego is gone.
Ego is completely gone.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. It's amazing.
So filming them at Verite actually worked out. It was actually pretty fun. Once we had trust in them, showing up, spent a few months going down there and talking to them. There's a natural reticence of somebody who is living there, and all of a sudden people want to come down to camera and start filming you while you're drinking and stuff. You have to establish a certain level of respect and trust that you're not going to show up and just show them intoxicated and make them look like a bunch of clowns, which they're not.
No, right. You're right. I mean, the dignity issues, right, is always in mind. It sounds like in a typical, let's say, rehab approach, there might be a message. This is not a message doc. I can tell you folks, this is not didactic. This is, except for maybe in a very, very, very subtle way of criticizing or of opening people's minds to alternative ways of dealing with this issue, which clearly it does. But it's even that you just take away from it. It's not like you're having somebody sit in front of the camera and saying that in any way. But I'm wondering if so can I guess maybe that the idea of like this could help others wasn't even part of the film, that these guys are kind of opening themselves up to help others? Was that anywhere in the conversation?
I never came to this project with the idea of having, a certain agenda. But I knew that this type of approach, harm reduction approach, is kind of innovative approach where they can actually drink on the premises, and it's counterintuitive, was a compelling idea and a progressive idea, an idea I think that's important. So on the one hand, I knew that would sort of come out of the footage, as you said. And we could have made a doc where we had some talking heads talking about the history of harm reduction and Skid Row and statistics on alcoholism and statistics on how much money the state was saving by having these harm reduction places, and kind of done it traditionally that way. But, as a filmmaker, it's just far more interesting to have an observational thing about what this really unique fringe world is like. And then hopefully, if you're in that world, you experience both empathy for the people who live there, so it gives you a different perspective on what these chronic alcoholics are like. And then hopefully come out of there on your own with the feeling that, maybe this sort of situation is actually a good thing for a community. You kind of arrive at it on your own instead of getting a perspective on it. And so that was always my intention going in there, because I knew since all these guys lived in one place, it was going to be a fantastic spot for Verite and putting you somewhere. No one was going anywhere. And, we could come down there with the camera crew, and they gave us the master key to the building and just let us do.
So you got full buy-in from the staff and
full buy-in, yeah, which was really nice. So, that was the way, kind of aesthetically I wanted to do, because I wanted it to be aesthetically interesting as well as kind of show the story.
Well, I mean, generations since Friends of Bill started, there's still such a tremendous amount of alcoholism. So, I mean, we should be searching for other approaches.
Yeah, and even if you're
with this.
Yeah, I think
plague,
the pandemic as well. I mean, I think alcohol consumption has probably gone up a little bit.
Has in my household.
Yeah. And everyone knows someone who struggles with, with drinking, whether they're, out of the closet about it or not. There's just a spectrum. And so even if you have a little bit of a drinking problem or you're further along in the progression, you can relate to these guys in some way. They're just the most extreme form. And so I think it will have interest. I think it's something that people can relate to with any sort of, addiction as well.
Well, I hope that, you get to show this in person and you have Q&As with their film, because this is a great example of a film documentary that really, where the conversation is just as important as the screening. I mean, it's just, I can see it. So hopefully you'll have that. I mean, right now it's at the Atlanta. I don't know. Do you have other festivals lined up? Or
yeah, we're gonna play it here in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Oh, great.
Next month. So I think that will be a virtual one as well. But
is that just a screening, or is that a theatrical, or is that a festival?
Yeah, it's a film festival. The Minneapolis St. Paul Film Festival.
Okay.
Minneapolis St. Paul, yeah. So here in the Twin Cities. But I think that one will be virtual as well. We did the score was done by this kind of avant-garde jazz group here, and so we're probably going to do an outdoor screening as well.
What are their name? What's the name of the group?
They call it the Fat Kid Wednesdays. JT Bates he wrote all the music, and Adam Linz and is the bassist, and then Michael Lewis was the saxophone player. And they're fantastic. And then Jeremy Obasaker did some of the music too. So, so there'll definitely be some, and hopefully, some festivals in the fall, because it'll be nice to get back to these festivals. I mean,
of course,
where,
right.
As you know, that's where it's really fun to experience it with an audience.
It's a big part of why you go to a festival is conversations, networking, and
yeah.
Those moments are the best part of it, for sure. I miss it myself. I was actually meant to ask you also, do you have an idea of how many of these wet houses exist in this country, or is there a lot of them? Do you know?
There's a large one in Seattle.
Okay.
And there are several of them in Minnesota. And I think there's a few in Canada. And I think there might be one in Iowa as well. They're just not very well publicized, or there's not some sort of national group that runs them. It's just sort of ad hoc in these different communities. There's a few in England as well. I mean, harm reduction is a little bit more accepted in Western Europe, with heroin usage and alcoholism, but it's a relatively new concept in the Puritan United States. But I think, if communities could sort of adopt this, they would create a place for these people to live, as well as, save money. So it's a win-win, on both sides of the,
right.
Both economically and with dignity as well,
Right.
It's run here by the Catholic Charities, and it's funded by the county. And I'm not sure who funds the one in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco could use a place like this. There's lots of places. Every community has got people like,
Yeah, of course. Any urban center.
Yeah.
There, there is a great amount of homeless alcoholics.
Right. Exactly.
Right now it's at the Atlanta Film Wet House is at the Atlanta, Film Festival through the 2nd of May. Great. Well, we should do this if we could do another one of these at some point if you or I could if when there's hopefully a broader way for people to see it, whether that's on demand, streaming, what have you. I'll make sure to reach out, or I'll plug it again when that happens. We'll stay in touch.
That sounds great, Adam. Yeah, we got a distributor and everything, so hopefully
very good.
Festivals go along, we'll get a sense of where it's coming out, and we can reconnect at that point.
That'd be good. Yeah. I really want people to see the film. I think it's necessary viewing. essential viewing.